Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast. We cover everything Major League, from spring training to the World Series. We've got your favorite club covered, from New York to Boston to LA. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast.
Thank you all for tuning in to the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Evan Worley. So, happy Friday to everybody out there. The last weekend before Thanksgiving, what am I talking about? Before Christmas. Anybody have plans for Christmas? I don't know what the heck I'm doing. I haven't really had a Christmas the past couple of years, which was kind of a bummer. But, being in college and all that kind of stuff, I didn't really do a whole bunch. Last year was pretty sad. There was a little mishap in the family, so, we didn't really celebrate anything that much, which was pretty much a bummer. But, the year before that wasn't really anything too crazy. So this is kind of like the first year I'm actually able to celebrate something with the family, which is kind of nice. But we'll see how that goes. I still don't know what I'm doing. I don't even know what we're allowed to do because of all this stuff that's going on. But hopefully we'll be able to make the best of it at some point. I'm hoping something interesting happens on the hot stove, because baseball's been boring these past couple weeks. Like, there really is nothing. It's like, it's weird in a sense of, when it comes to MLB free agency, it's like, it's either a standstill to where, like, someone's got to break first. Who's going to break first? And then, the floodgates open. Or it's a standstill until February. Sometimes even into spring training, like March something. It's kind of annoying. I really wish something of substance will happen, because right now it's just kind of like average, just whatever guys who probably weren't expecting a ton of offers, and then they got an offer and they decided to hop on it. Not like, no disrespect to them or anything like that, but it's kind of just what it's looking like. Everything that I've got so far, it's pretty much, today's episode is pretty much just all re-signings, rumors, all that kind of stuff. Pretty much the same stuff that we went over yesterday. There's not really much difference in news, except for segment 4. The last segment, is kind of some notable names who are drawing interest from different teams, which is kind of nice. But, nothing really too over the top, just kind of normal stuff. Not really breaking news or anything either. Like, I don't know, it just seems pretty boring this week. I hope that something, kind of pops off, even though it is, the holiday season. Christmas is next week, so, and then you got New Year's. So there's not a lot of people who are looking at, doing a lot of work right now in the baseball side of it. Everybody, even in real life, if you still have a job, this is kind of like the week where you kind of fudge around until the holidays are over. Like, let's be real. Whenever you're working at a normal, like, 9 to 5 or whatever, it's like that time where you just kind of screw around and have debates on other things while you're at work, just to kill time, because it's the holidays and no one really cares besides your boss, because it's his, like, he's still getting evaluated by the head honchos, but nobody else really cares. You just kind of do work when the boss walks around. So, I don't know. We'll see what's going on here. So with news going on, let's see what happened. I guess we'll start here. The Giants signed Anthony DeScalfani to a 1-year, $6 million contract on Wednesday. Natural. I mean, it is the Giants. Like, the Giants, we all know the Giants do this. Whatever they have in their pitching, department, their coaches are incredible. They're amazing. It happens all the time. They get some no-name guy at the end of his career, or they get like some, pretty good pitcher towards the end of his career who's had a couple setbacks. I always go back to Jake Peavy because Jake Peavy was really good at the start of his career with the Padres. Then he went off I think he went off somewhere else before he went to the Padres. I think he was in Boston if I'm not mistaken. I think he was in Boston for a little bit, and then he sucked. And then he goes back to San Francisco on kind of like a last-ditch effort to try and, do what he can do. And, he ends up being pretty pivotal on a World Series team. Kind of something like that. Brian Wilson was the man, was the closer. Like, he was the man for a little bit. Then he went somewhere else, and he was trash. And, Sergio Romo came in. And next thing you know, Sergio Romo was the guy. And until Sergio Romo went to Tampa Bay, where they're decked out with analytics and all that kind of stuff, he was trash on other teams. And then he goes to Tampa, he's good, and now I don't think he's on Tampa anymore. I think he's somewhere else, but if I'm not mistaken, he's in Minnesota, and he's not that great. He's just an average closer, which isn't a bad thing. I mean, but it is what it is. So the Giants are reloading on that. He had a rough year this year. He had a 7.22 ERA in 9 appearances. He started 7 of those 9 appearances. But on the other hand, he's only 1 year removed from a 3.89 ERA over 31 starts in 2019. He's a former 6th round draft pick of the Blue Jays in 2011. He's got a 4.29 ERA over 6 MLB seasons. And that should help fill, a rotation spot that was left off by Drew Smyly leaving, Tyler Anderson leaving, Jeff Samardzija. So expect the Giants to make more moves. I don't really think that they have, a ton of, prospects that are supposed to come up soon. I want to see who their top prospects are, actually. Let's look this out. San Francisco dang. Why does that happen? San Francisco top prospects. This is what we're doing here, fellas. We're doing this on the run here. Okay, Giants top prospects. Let's look at it. Okay, so we got Barr. So their first one is Seth Corey. I did not expect that. So they have one lefty. Let's see. They have 2 pitchers in the top 10. So they have Seth Corey and Sean Hagel. I don't think that's the right name. I definitely said that wrong. And then you got Kyle Harrison, Nick Sweeney, Blake Rivera. So they got some guys. Tristan Beck. A few guys that are set to, come up in 2021. Let's see. Seth Corey, 2022 is expected for him. 2021 for Hagel, the righty. Let's see. We have a lefty in rookie ball who's number 12. Let's see who's supposed to come up. Gregory Santos is supposed to come up in 2022, but it looks like he's already up in MLB standards. Blake Rivera is supposed to come up next year. So they have a couple guys that are ready to break into the bigs, which is kind of nice. But I mean, it's the Giants. They're going to do whatever they can to kind of boost their situation without having to rely on the younger guys. So expect more moves out of them, especially for guys that are kind of at the edge of their career, because, I mean, Oracle Park is, very pitcher friendly, and, they're, like I said earlier, the coaching staff and pitching coach are amazing. Their pitching coach, Andrew Bailey, He spent a lot of times in the bigs. He was one of the game's top closers for a while, so he's going to be turning out guys left and right. Moving on, speaking of Tampa Bay, we brought up Tampa Bay with Sergio Romo. Tampa signed Mike Zunino. So Mike Zunino got another 1-year deal, $2 million guaranteed. Come back as catcher. The catching market is very strange to me. He's getting $2 million guaranteed, like I said. Let's see, he's got which is okay. So that's less than half of what the Rays would have paid him if they had picked up his club option last month. So they saved $2.5 million on that. The Rays also have a club option for 2022, which is worth between $4 and $7 million, depending on playing time, which includes a $1 million buyout. Zunino, he's not the best hitter. The past 2 seasons, he's hit 161 with 13 homers and a 5.56 OPS. He had some success in the postseason. We hit 4 home runs in the postseason, to get the Rays to the World Series this year. But I think you're typically getting Mike Zunino for his game calling abilities. I don't think you're getting him for his bat. I remember watching him in college at the University of Florida, and he was the guy. He was the number 3 hitter. He was the future of hitting in baseball, like the hitting catcher. He was pretty much compared to Mike Piazza in the way that he was just able to mash left and right. He was brought in, to be the next guy, and that's exactly who I thought he was going to be when he came up, and he had some success. Like, he had some pretty decent numbers coming up in with the Seattle Mariners, if I'm not mistaken. Let's see, let's go to his baseball reference page. So, standard batting, when he came up, he had a couple years of some pretty good power. So he came up in 2013. He played 52 games, 5 homers, 14 RBIs, 214 batting average. 2014, his first full season, he had 131 games, 22 homers, 60 RBIs, batted sub 200, not great. Let's see, 2015, 112 games, 11 homers, not great. So his best statistical season on record was 2017. He played 124 games. He had 25 doubles, 25 homers, 64 RBIs, batted 251. He had an OPS plus of 125. But ever since then, he's had an OPS plus of below league average. So even dipping down to 45, which is 55 points below league average. So basically, what we're saying here is, this guy he's not the best. So let's see. So we have defensive runs saved above average. So he's a positive effect in defensive runs saved, which is kind of nice every year except for last year. Last year he was minus 11 in defensive runs saved. Let's see. So defensive runs saved, not great. His fielding percentage in the 995, 995, 994, 1000, 993, 998. Let's see. His caught stealing percentage, career high was 2 years ago in 2019. He was at 39%. So he does a good job at throwing out batters. His wild pitches are a little high. He had a career high in 2014 of 62, but it seems like it's been kind of down ever since. Last year was 16, which is, way more than it was would have been on pace, I should say, for way more, because he let up 16 pass balls in 28 games, and then in 2019 he let up 25 wild pitches in 90 games. So not great. There's a lot of advanced stats that I'm not familiar with that are coming up, like range factor per game. I don't know what range factor is. Like, what is putouts plus assists per games played? I don't know why that's range factor. I really don't. That doesn't make any sense to me. But whatever. Advanced stats are all for him. So it looks like the Rays are bringing him back on another deal, so hopefully he'll be able to turn it around offensively because I still remember him at Florida, and he was the absolute man. And then we're going to end it with this. The Rockies and right-hander Daniel Bard have agreed to a 1-year deal to avoid arbitration. It is worth $2.9 million, but the club has not confirmed the terms of the agreement. Bard is the National League Comeback Player of the Year. As we all know, this past season, he was 35-year-old righty, had not pitched in the majors since 2013. He came back last year. He had, a 4-2 record with 6 saves and a 3.65 ERA in 23 appearances. In 14 of the 23 outings he held the opposition scoreless. So Daniel Bard will be coming back, looking to do a little bit more than he did last season, with a little bigger of a sample size. So we will see how he does there. Let's check out Daniel Bard's baseball reference page, just because, why not? So we have Daniel Bard right here. Man, he had nothing. It just drops off from 2013 to 2020. Let's see. He had a career low ERA. What was it? In 2010. Wow. 73 games, a 1.93 ERA, but it was up, and away after that. Then he was able to bounce back. Good for Daniel Bard. At least he's getting to end his career on a high note. I'm all for that. All right, everybody. I'm going to be taking a quick break, and I'll be right back with some rumors.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Alrighty, so we got some interesting news, I would say. So, in 2021, we expected the universal DH to come back, and it didn't. So, initially I did a show talking about Marcel Ozuna and the fact that he was probably going to end up a DH in the AL, looking more towards, Boston or maybe kind of up-and-coming team like Chicago. Because the DH role is perfect for him. Everybody knows it is. Well, it's perfect to everybody but Marcel Ozuna. Marcel Ozuna wants to play the outfield still. He's only 4 seasons removed from winning the Gold Glove Award in 2017 when he was with the Miami Marlins. He argues that it could be worth the risk of signing Ozuna to man the outfield, even though he had his troubles when he was with St. Louis. His arm was lacking due to multiple shoulder surgeries. And he still has this feeling that he needs to prove himself as a defender, which is fine. I get it. Everybody has their, when people tell them no, especially professional athletes, there's a drive to prove everybody wrong. Even I have it a little bit, to the point where, I try and go the extra mile a little bit, but it's kind of weird that, this guy who has had not only troubles throwing, but troubles even reading fly balls. He's had there's been a couple times in his career where he's jumped on the fence trying to rob a homer, and it bounces on the warning track. Now, everybody remembers the one that was really bad in St. Louis, but I think it happened last year with Atlanta as well, where he was trying to rob a homer and it ended up bouncing on the warning track. Granted, he didn't fall and, face plant and all that kind of stuff, but, he still has issues reading fly balls. Now, one thing that could be done is, I think that even if he were, I still think Chicago should sign him, mainly because Eloy Jimenez has had the same type of career path to where, he's kind of not reading, he's kind of misjudging fly balls a little bit. He's not the best defender in the game. He's not the worst defender by any stretch, but, he's not the best. He's doesn't really have, like, that big of range. He fell into the tarp a couple times, or not the tarp, but, the netting down the left field line. He's fallen into that a couple times to where he could barely find his way out. It could be worth it to put him at the DH and put Marcel Ozuna there, or even flip-flop to where, like, Marcel plays a few games at left field and then Eloy plays a couple games, because Eloy's hurt himself also a couple times in the outfield to the point where you take his bat out of the lineup, and that's not optimal, especially since he's a very, very good power hitter. So come to think of it that way, you can save Eloy Jimenez, have him get at least 160 games at the dish, and have Marcel Ozuna be able to play the outfield and hit as well, which is currently what he wants to do. I can see both ways. I can really understand it, but when it comes to the sense of Atlanta, let's see if Atlanta's trying to re-sign him. I don't know if that's going to work out so well, because Atlanta has to figure out, with Christian Pache coming up alongside Ronald Acuna Jr., they have Drew Waters coming up to replace Nick Markakis, who's leaving. I think the only really big thing that was going to happen with Marcel Ozuna was, is he going to re-sign with the Atlanta Braves, if he was going to be a designated hitter. And he's not, and it's for the Braves to figure out, like, okay, are we going to keep, Drew Waters up but on the bench and only have him play very sparingly, or are we going to let Marcel Ozuna go and have Waters play every day? Now, I don't think that's the best idea right now, especially because, you're bringing up two rookies on a team that was one game away from the World Series last year. You're taking away arguably the clutchest bat that we had last year, alongside with, NL MVP Freddie Freeman. It's risky. You have to like really prioritize the development of Drew Waters and Christian Pache at this point, because Pache has gotten comparisons to Andrew Jones, which is incredible. If he can be a third of what Andrew Jones was for the Atlanta Braves in the 2000s, that would be incredible. But, that comes with time. Andrew Jones came up in his rookie season. He was, an impact player in the World Series. Pache hit one homer in the NLCS, but, besides that, he wasn't really doing much. Now, that could be just a little blip in his career, which it probably will be, but, you have to take into account a lot more than that. And I think that the Braves should go after Marcel Ozuna again, keep Pache up, keep Drew Waters up, and I think what they could do is they could have the corner of the outfield be Acuna and Ozuna, and then switch off and kind of platoon Waters and Pache to where, like, it's a lefty-righty matchup type of thing. If you have a lefty starting, because I think Drew Waters is left-handed, if I'm not mistaken. If Drew Waters, let me Google him just to make sure. Drew Waters, Braves. Let's see. Drew Waters, top prospect. come on, guys. Okay, so he's a switch hitter. Awesome. Okay, so he's a switch hitter, but they say he's better from the left side. And, if he's better from the left side, then, have him face righties and then Christian Pache face lefties, kind of like that. Maybe you can do that. That's what I'm all for. Maybe switch them off 80 games. I don't know what they're going to do, obviously. We might, and who knows, if Acuna gets hurt and, you'll have to play both of them, and that's just more development for each. It is what you just kind of got to go with what cards you're dealt and just kind of find a way to pull it out. There are off days. You can give more off days to Marcel Ozuna. You can give more off days to Acuna to, keep them healthy throughout the year. And then when the playoffs come around, they have enough experience. Who knows? But all I know is Marcel Ozuna most likely trying to play the outfield. Next up on news, Michael Conforto looks like he is openly discussed with the Mets ownership that he wants to have a long-term extension. Big news from the New York Mets. Michael Conforto was there for the World Series. He was a big hitter in the World Series. He's pretty much the face of the Mets, I would say. He's seeking a long-term deal. He has 1 year remaining until he reaches free agency, and he's coming off, one could argue, his best season. He hit .322. He had a .412 on-base percentage, a .927 OPS with 9 homers and 31 RBIs in 54 games. Granted, it is only 54 games, but, when someone puts up that kind of effort and those kind of numbers alongside Pete Alonso, and now you're bringing in, you finally have that power threat in the lineup. So, Michael Conforto, who we've all known has been probably their best hitter, it's great. And, when they're going to bring in more people. Like, say they just bring in George Springer. Who would you rather face, Conforto or George Springer? It's like you're not going to want to make a mistake to either. And you can't walk everybody, because if you let those two on, along with Jeff McNeil, who is a great hitter, you have to be on top of it at all times. Then you have Pete Alonso, who is going to hurt you. There's in a lineup full of powerful bats. I'm not going to say power bats, but powerful bats. And, when, that just puts so much pressure on the pitcher. You have to, granted, there are MLB pitchers, and they're not, they're going to make mistakes from time to time, but it just puts more pressure on the pitcher, and when there's more pressure on the pitcher, they're more prone to make mistakes, so the lineup is going to be able to take care of itself. I think that, signing Michael Conforto, getting a big-name hitter, it looks like DJ LeMahieu, all signs are pointing towards going back to the Yankees, which is fine. I'm okay with that, I guess. It's not really that big of a deal, but when you get a huge bat, we'll talk about another, bit of information we've been getting about the New York Mets and, who they're going after. We'll talk to that in the last segment, but they're shaping up to look like a real contender, and it's great because they're not really doing it artificially. As much as, this is kind of a, what are they calling it now, where they're just getting a bunch of free agents and all that kind of stuff, like a traveler's trophy or something. But, Michael Conforto's been there since, the 2015 World Series, so is Jacob deGrom, so is Noah Syndergaard. They got Marcus Stroman back, and, maybe he'll finish the year out with them. Their bullpen has been around for a couple years now. They've got Jeff McNeil, who's been there for forever. I think Brandon Nimmo is still there. Pete Alonso, of course. Michael Conforto. Those are 4 of their big-name guys. They've been with the Mets for a while. You get a couple more. Big names because you just got James McCann, who's a pretty good catcher. Big, he's got some pop in his bat. get a few other guys, that lineup's looking pretty nice. And I think they still have Ahmed Rosario. There's some talent in that lineup. And, it's not all from outsourcing. It's not like a Yankee title where it's like you got A-Rod who came from, Texas. You have Sheffield who came from, the Braves, I think it was. I think he was on the Braves before the Yankees. And then you got Giambi from, the Oakland A's. You got, it was, Clemens from, where'd Clemens before that? He came back from Houston. Andy Pettitte also came back from Houston. You know what I'm saying? It was like, you got a bunch of random guys from all over the place coming to the Yankees. And it's like, yeah, the Yankees won a title, but, there weren't many homegrowns there. I think that this team was built on its own from, the minor league system, and then just picked a few guys out of the blue who, come, help them win a championship. So I'm all for it. I'm all for the Mets being competitive. I have a few friends who are Mets fans, and, it looks like, I would like to see them. I would like to see them be, good just because, I don't know, it's more fun when the Mets are good, I think. I think baseball is just more fun when the Mets are okay. Yeah, it's just my take. And then we'll close it off with this. Kris Bryant it sounds like he's not going anywhere. Scott Boras, Bryant's agent, said on a Zoom call on Tuesday that Bryant's preparing to be a Cub for a very long time. His versatility in the infield and the outfield kind of helps with the team needs. When you think about, his performance, he was injured all last year. It was pretty hard for him to, get not only get on the field, but actually to perform. He had he had a pretty bad stretch. We're all well aware. He had a 206 batting average, 293 on base percentage, a 351 slash line, just 4 homers. It looks like if you were the Cubs and you were able to sell Kris Bryant right now, you're not getting a whole bunch for him. As I mapped out on a few episodes ago, his numbers have consistently gone south the past few years ever since his MVP season. But, he went from an untradeable asset, like top 10 player in the bigs, to now he's not even in the top 100. And, he's had an injury-plagued season. So you're expecting to find a team that, is just going to take $20 million from you and a bunch of prospects. Because, Bryant's a big contract, so you're going to have to try and, even that out somehow. It's I would prepare to see Kris Bryant stay with the Chicago Cubs. I don't expect the Cubs to make any big moves. I think with him, they're going to be, they're going to offer something a little bit lower if they have room. I don't know when his contract's up. He's whether he stays or traded 2021 gives a chance to prove. Yeah, so he's going to be under contract, obviously, for 2021. I don't know if he's going to be under contract for 2022, 2023. I think he's under contract for multiple years after this, so I don't see why they would trade him. What I would do if I was the Chicago Cubs is I would focus on the starting rotation this year and spend the entire year hoping that Javi Baez comes back, because whether or not he is the future of, playing shortstop for the Chicago Cubs, I truly feel like with the fan base, they are looking at Javi Baez as the face of the Cubs because he is one of the most exciting players in the league. Obviously, he struggled last season as well. So did the entire club. The entire starting lineup for the Cubs outside of their pitching was pretty shaky last year, and they still won the NL Central. I don't see why you would break that up. What I would do is I would focus solely on Javi Baez this year, make sure he's doing great, figure out what numbers he wants, what kind of deal he needs to get done, and get it done. He's the face of the Cubs. He's one of the most exciting players in baseball. He could arguably be the face of baseball. Figure it out, Chicago. Don't try and move Kris Bryant yet. Make sure he has another full season in him to show that it was a fluke. If he has 2 shaky seasons back to back, then I could see getting rid of him. But if he has this season, which was terrible, and then you look at next season and his OPS plus is below league average, and he's striking out 4 times more than he walks again, I would figure out a way to dish him and get him out of Chicago. All right, everybody, I am going to be taking another quick break, and I'll be right back with more rumors.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
I truly feel like rumors is all we're going to get until 2021 hits. Literally for the rest of the year, even though it's only a couple weeks, I feel like all we're going to get is rumors. And even into 2021, I feel like the number one thing we're going to be getting is just a bunch of rumors. I mean, I'm not against rumors, but I'm not a huge, I'm not a huge fan of rumors, especially because the rumors that I liked all in the NBA, because that is probably the most exciting free agent period. It's, can you ever really trust rumors? Not really. Some of them you can, but for this, I'm not super in on them. But that's all we really have to report on. So here goes nothing. Jackie Bradley Jr. is on the market. He had a pretty big year last year. New Phillies general manager Dave Dombrowski. He ran things in Boston for a long time. Pretty solid chunk of Jackie's career up there. I think he'd also be a good fit for the Cubs. His presence, I think, would allow Ian Happ to slide over to left field, replace Kyle Schwarber in left. I think Happ, Bradley, and Jason Hayward would be a lot better of a defensive alignment than, Ian Happ, Kyle Schwarber, and Jason Hayward, or, the few times they had Alberto Mora Jr. out there. Who's to say? Who's to say what's gonna happen? Let's look at his numbers from last season. So last season he had a slash line of 283, 364, and 450, which 283 was the highest of his career. His 364 on base percentage also the highest of his career, and his 450 slugging percentage was the highest since his All-Star season back in 2016. His OPS was third highest of his career, highest since his All-Star game appearance in 2016, and then his OPS plus was at 118, which was tied with his All-Star season in 2016. So basically, he had his best career since his All-Star season. He's gone to one All-Star game. He's won a single Gold Glove. He's done pretty well. In 55 games, he had 32 runs, 54 hits, 11 doubles, 7 homers, 22 RBIs, 5 steals, 23 walks, and 48 strikeouts. Baseball Reference has his projection for next season, 482 ABs, 73 runs, 114 hits, 27 doubles, 18 homers, 61 RBIs, 11 steals, 237 batting average, a 324 on base, a 413 slugging, a 737 OPS. So, pretty decent. Pretty decent. So, let's go to his defensive standings. Oh, good gravy. Oh, I forgot they do everything differently. Okay, so, let's go to his career. His career fielding percentage, .990, not bad in the outfield. Let's see. His total zone total fielding runs above average. Whatever that means. Defensive runs saved above average. Okay, so his defensive runs saved over his career is 53. Last year, he had 5 defensive runs saved. In his Gold Glove year. In the outfield in total, he had 23 defensive runs saved. Pretty good. Pretty good. Range factor per game. I still don't know what any of this means. If anybody does, please help me. Because this, honestly, I have no idea what any of this is. Like, what is the point of it? Anyways, back to Jackie Bradley. So, Jackie Bradley, I think, he fits. He fits with, the Phillies, obviously, because Dave Dombrowski did not get rid of him, even when he was at his low points offensively. I see him as, like, a better version of Ben Revere, and anybody who knows me knows that Ben Revere was probably one of my favorite players to watch in the outfield. He was up there with Kevin Pillar. I like those kind of not no-name guys, but the kind of like the little guys who will get overshadowed by the big power guys. They go out there, they play incredible defense, they just know how to win games. I was all for that. So I see him as one of those guys. I can understand why these teams are going after him, and being that he's only 30 years old, I think if he goes to the Cubs or if he goes to the Phillies, I think a 4-year deal worth about, I would say 4 years, around $60 million, I think is a perfect deal for Jackie Bradley Jr. He brings, he's won World Series, he's played in, a number of big games. He's able to bring speed, consistency, and just knowing what it's like to win back to these teams. And, just kind of a breath of fresh air. It also helps, obviously, his defense obviously helps the pitching staff. But, just not only by making the plays, but it helps, calm the pitcher down when they know there's somebody back there who can make the plays and will make the plays, to the point where, they can, focus more on just attacking the batter than like, okay, I better make sure that he doesn't pull it to left field because Kyle Schwarber is out in left and he can't do anything. So we'll see what happens to good old Jackie Bradley Jr. Moving on to nobody's surprise. The San Diego Padres are talking about a long-term extension with franchise cornerstone Fernando Tatis Jr. So he turns 22 in January this year. He had a slash line this year of 301, 374, and 582 with a 154 OPS plus. He's incredible. Like, he is absolutely an incredible player. Going to Fernando Tatis back over here. Or that wasn't last year. That's his career slash line. I'm sorry. So, basically in his 2 years, he was ranked 3rd in Rookie of the Year, and that's because he only played half of the games. And then he was 4th in MVP voting last year, only missing one single game. And then he also won the Silver Slugger. Looking at his projected numbers for next year, he has 584 projected plate appearances, 99 runs, 150 hits, 23 doubles, 5 triples, 33 homers, 90 RBIs, 21 steals, a 291 batting average, 371 on base, 547 slugging, a 917 OPS. Yeah, if it's your 3rd year in the bigs, you're only 22 years old, and you're out here, getting that kind of projections. Yeah, I'd say lock you up for forever, especially when you have a guy like Manny Machado right next to you who you can, go back and forth with over and over again. Like, that side of the infield, it takes a lot to get Manny Machado to actually play. He played when he first got there in Baltimore. You could tell he was taking games off. He was taking, series off mostly. He really played when he wanted to. And then he went to Los Angeles and, kind of the same thing. He kind of just played when he wanted to. There wasn't really a sense of urgency. There wasn't a sense of real drive to win anything. He chased that horrible, horrible slider, I think it was, so far off the dish in the World Series against the Boston Red Sox. He really phoned that in, and I think that was pretty much it because it was such a horrible pitch to swing at. It's like he wasn't even trying. He just wanted to get it over with. So the fact that, Fernando Tatis is able to come back and give him that kind of, jolt of energy is pretty crazy to me, at least. And then, it's really early for the Padres to be doing this because, Tatis isn't eligible for free agency until the 2024 season. So, I can see why they're doing it, though. It's early to be doing it, so they have a lot of time to negotiate, but the fact that they're out here trying to do this makes a lot of sense because you want to lock him up immediately, mainly because the more you give him and the earlier you give it to him, the more I think loyalty he'll have to you. It's kind of like how the Braves did it with, I hate bringing everything back to the Braves because I know you guys want to hear something a little bit more different, the Braves side of the story, but since they're my favorite team, I pay the most attention to them. But with the Braves and even the White Sox, they gave Acuna Jr. like halfway through his rookie year 10 for 100, and he signed it. With the Chicago White Sox, they saw what they had with Luis Robert, gave him 8 for 64, I think, when he was in the minor leagues. I think they did the same thing to Eloy Jimenez. They locked up Yohan Moncada to a long-term deal before he even made it to the bigs. And it's like, why are they doing that so young? It's like these guys are going to be happier earlier and know that you have trust in them. So the fact that they're not waiting until 2024 to actually talk long-term extension is huge, probably for the morale of Fernando Tatis himself. Because, when it just shows that they want him around forever. And he's probably going to, I'm not going to say he's going to reset the market and get Mookie numbers or get Trout numbers, but he's definitely going to extend into the 9 figures. I would expect it to be around between $250 and $300 million for around a 13-year deal. I would expect a Bryce Harper type contract given out to Fernando Tatis, which is going to be crazy because it's going to be right around the same amount of money that they gave to Manny Machado, because I think Machado got $300 million as well. And on top of the Eric Hosmer deal with $184 million. Crazy. Absolutely nuts at the Padres. The Padres went from being a team that didn't really have any stars to now having multiple $300 million contracts under their belt, along with, another $184 million and whatever Will Myers got. I think Will Myers got over $100 million. Insane. Absolutely nuts, but it looks like Tatis is going to be a staple of the San Diego Padres, which is great. I want the Padres to win. They're just a cool team, and especially since they got their Their uniforms back to the brown and the gold and everything. They just look clean. Like, the Padres are just a cool team to be around. They're right by the water. I really want to go visit my buddy who lives out in San Diego just so I can go see a Padres game because it just seems fun. It just seems like it's most fun. I will move on. Moving on, we're going to round this out with the Seattle Mariners are boosting up their bullpen. So the Rangers traded right-handed reliever Rafael Montero to the Mariners. The New York Post adds that the Rangers will get Jose Corniel and a player to be named later in return. Montero, in his age 29 season, pitched a 4.08 ERA. That was across 17 and 2/3 innings. We had a 3.17 K to walk ratio. He owns a career ERA plus of 84, but that also includes his stint as a starting pitcher earlier in his career. Over the last 2 seasons, his ERA plus has been 162 in 39 relief appearances for the Rangers. So Rafael Montero has done pretty well for himself out of the bullpen the past couple of years in Texas. Going back to 2017 through 2014 when he was with the Mets. He started 8 out of 10 games, and then that was in 2014. He had a 4.06 ERA in 44 innings, ERA plus of 86, a FIP of 5.1, and a WHIP of 1.5. Not great. Then you go down to his other season as a primary starter. He was 5-11 in 34 games. He had 18 starts in those 34 games. He had 119 innings pitched. He got 114 strikeouts. Not bad. Not terrible. An ERA plus of 75. He had a 4.37 FIP and a 1.7 WHIP, so that got even worse. And then he comes back. He's off 2018 in the minors. 2019, he's back with the Texas Rangers. 2-0, 2.48 ERA in 22 appearances. He pitched 29 innings, 23 hits, 34 Ks, only 5 walks. He had an ERA plus of 2.10 with a 3.83 FIP and a 0.966 WHIP. Way, way, way better. And then last year, 0-1. He pitched in 17 games. He had 17 innings, 12 hits, 19 Ks, 6 walks, a 1.13 ERA plus, a 3.70 FIP, and a 1.01 WHIP. So Rafael Montero doing a great job with the Texas Rangers last year. Is going to bring a little bit to the Seattle Mariners. The Seattle Mariners also went and got Keenan Middleton of the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. Middleton, a relatively young pitcher. He is only, when was he born? So he's 27 years old from Portland, Oregon. He was a 3rd-round pick in the 2013 draft. He came up at 23 years old in 2017. He was 6-1 in 64 games. He had 58.1 innings. He gave up 60 hits, had 63 Ks, ERA plus of 1.11, a 4.38 FIP, and a 1.3 WHIP. Not bad by Keenan Reynolds, right? Middleton. Keenan Middleton. Keenan Reynolds is the old Navy quarterback. That's where I'm getting it from. Then he had 16 appearances in 2018, 16 appearances, 16 strikeouts, and ERA plus of 2.10. He had a 2.04 ERA. A 3.78 FIP, a 1.3 WHIP again. And then 2019, he pitched in 11 games before getting hurt. He had a 1.17 ERA in 7.2 innings with 6 Ks, and ERA plus of an astounding 4.10 because he barely pitched. And then in 2020, he was 26. ERA jumped a bit in 13 games. He had a 5.25 ERA in 12 innings. He had 11 Ks, an ERA plus of 88, a 5.02 FIP, and a 1.5 WHIP. So they're looking to see if he can get back to his rookie season of 2017 to really help out that bullpen. But at least the Mariners are doing something to try and get better. I'm all for it. They have a franchise, player in Kyle Lewis. They have the opportunity to do something. I hope that they do get to the playoffs at some point, because, not being in the playoffs since 2001 has been a total bummer. And, they're the lovable losers, I guess. But I'm tired of seeing lovable losers. I want them to actually go out and to succeed. All right, everybody, I'm going to be taking my final break, and I'll be right back to talk about, some more rumors. Basically, we have some big names. I mentioned this earlier. We have some big names that are drawing interest on the trade market, and I'm going to weigh in. I'll be right back after this break.
Want to know the latest in soccer? Then listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast. From MLS, the World Cup, and the Premier League, we've got you covered. The latest updates, the hottest matches, and news on the league's top players. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast.
David Beckham scores the goal to take England all the way to the World Cup finals.
Listen now.
All right, people, the last set of rumors for the day, I promise. But these are the juicy ones. So according to MLB Network's John Morosi, the Rockies are hoping, keyword, hoping to engage the Mets in trade talks over Nolan Arenado. So Nolan Arenado is 30 years old in April. For the second consecutive season, he's on the market. Over the last 3 seasons, he's hit .299 with a 367 on base and a .554 slugging, 125 OPS plus with 87 homers. He's won a Gold Glove in each of those 3 years. But the thing that got me is it's not a matter of talent with Arenado. It's a matter of money, obviously. So they're looking for money for, to make the trade, I guess. His contract's going to pay him $35 million over 2021. He'll have the ability to opt out. If Arenado picks to hit the open market, he'll be owed another, if he picks against hitting the open market, he'll be owed another $164 million through the 2026 season. The Rockies are hoping to get underneath it, obviously, and so they can move him somewhere. The Mets make the most sense because, obviously, Steve Cohen is the wealthiest. Money-wise, I know there is no salary cap, so there's no need for money with Arenado. You don't have to make it even, but if you wanted to make it even with someone who is an expiring contract, the New York Mets have Robinson Cano's contract that is still rather large that they can send over so they can get someone with some talent and some pop in his bat that, could, give them something to look forward to with a contract coming off the books. The Mets, they're in on everything. Ever since Steve Cohen got in, they're in on everyone. It doesn't matter who it is. The fact that the Rockies want the Mets in on Arenado is a big deal, and it shows them that, if the Mets do engage, the fact that this is out there, they can lowball the Rockies. Because the Rockies, if you say, hey, we want to give them to you, what will you give us in return? That puts all the power in the hands of the Mets. If the Mets were to come after them and just be like, yo, we want Arenado, it's like, okay, well, what are you willing to give us? And now the ball is in your court, Colorado, but the ball's not in your court. You gave the ball to New York and Steve Cohen. So that makes no sense. Especially when the Mets can go after George Springer and Cleveland shortstop Francisco Lindor and possibly a sign and trade amongst a laundry list of others. What's the point here? What's the main goal? And with this, if they're trading Nolan Arenado through 2026, I mean, he's going to be 36 years old. 36 is not that old in baseball terms. 36, and for a healthy player, too, with the possibility of there being a universal DH within the next few years, by the time 2026 is over. So you're telling me that a 34-year-old player who can hit 40 homers a year, who's been the cornerstone of the franchise for quite a long time up until this point, you're just willing to trade him over pretty much nothing? I don't understand that at all. I get they're not a big market franchise, but still, if you're going to give that deal in the first place, why are you trying to get out from under it if you know he's going to give you what he's going to give you? It just doesn't make sense to me. But it is what it is. They're looking to give him to the New York Mets. And once again, if they're able to give it to the New York Mets, you have Nolan Arenado batting third, Pete Alonso fourth, or vice versa. Then you have Michael Conforto at 5. And then you can go with, or you put Michael Conforto at 2. Maybe add George Springer in there. Jeff McNeil's at the 2. Then Conforto at the 5. It's a solid lineup. Then you got James McCann right after him at 6. That is a pretty dense lineup. Along with that awesome pitching staff, and they'll probably make some deals. If that's the case, they're going to make some deals to go, beef up that bullpen. That just makes the most sense. And then now you're looking at a real title team. As long as, they're able to gel and play the right way. Because that's the thing where people forget. They see these super teams and they go, oh, they're just immediately going to gel and play well and, do everything the right way. Not always the case. So if you get a bunch of people who are, from outsiders who are looking for, a place to be, and, they're not always on the best of terms doing that kind of stuff, they're not going to compete as hard and they're not going to gel well. And if they don't compete as hard and they don't gel, then they're not going to be a team that's going to compete for a championship. So what's that going to be like for Nolan Arenado? I don't know. Who's to say? But we don't know how great Nolan Arenado is in the postseason. We haven't seen a lot of him in the postseason. If the Mets are to get Nolan Arenado, who knows? He may pull out magic and be the guy in the postseason. He may be overwhelmed and play not so great. It is what it is. But I just don't understand why the Rockies would say that we want the Mets to go after him. Why would you put the ball in their court? Just throw them out on the trade market and see what comes back and bites. And then whatever comes back and bites, add to it. See what else you can get. Oh, I can get a draft pick. I can get this. I can get that. Cool. Let me get it. Just see what happens. It's baseball. Negotiate. Come on, guys. Lastly, you know how I feel about this, but Yadier Molina is getting a ton of interest from the Washington Nationals. So, Yadier Molina is 38 years old, the catcher of the 2000s, the 2010s, I should say. He's an incredible player. I love Yadier Molina. He's arguably one of my favorite catchers of all time. Let's see. He's a 9-time All-Star. He's won 2 World Series, a Silver Slugger, 4-time Platinum Glove Award winner, 9-time Gold Glove Award winner. He's just a great player. Now they're saying, he's quote-unquote below average hitter by positional standards. I really don't think so. He's batting. Let's go back to 2017. 2017, his slash line, 273, 312, 490, or 439. 2018, 261, 314, 436. 2019, 270, 312, 399. Last year, 262, 303, 359. You know, his homers have never been off the charts. You know, in 2017, he had 18, 2018, he had 20. 2019, he had 10. Last year, he had 4. Fine. Whatever, he's aging. His career high is 22. So he had, in 2012, he had 22. And then he went 12, 7, 4, 8, and then back up to 18. Like, he's never been the real power guy, but you know what you're getting out of him. You're getting a Gold Glover, an All-Star. He's finished in the MVP voting, top 5 of the MVP voting twice. Like, what more can you want? He's a Silver Slugger Award winner as well as at the catching position. You know, we batted .319 back in 2013. Like, he's been pretty constant. 262 was tied for his worst season. Actually, scratch that. His worst season was 2006 at 216. He had one dip below 250, and that was in 2006. Like, I don't see why he's all of a sudden below standard, for catching. He's not below average for catching. Offensive-wise, he's exactly what he's supposed to be. And, with James McCann signing, he looks like, besides Real Muto, the next guy on the market. I know that the St. Louis Cardinals are still going after him. I really hope he resigns there. I hope he's a lifer. It would just mean more if he was a lifer with the St. Louis Cardinals. But I was reading this article saying that the Nationals are interested in him. I get it. They have, they're looking for Kurt Suzuki replacement to share time with Yan Gomes. Kurt Suzuki, fine. He's good, I guess. Let's see what his baseball reference page is. Let's go baseball reference. We'll go to Kurt Suzuki. Let's see what he is like the last year. Okay, so 270 batting average to 262, 349 to 303, and then 396 to 359. Not much different. He had 2 homers last year for 17 RBIs. Yadier Molina, 4 homers, 16 RBIs. Not much different, guys. Not much different. Kurt Suzuki's career high in homers is 19. Like, what are we doing here? Kurt Suzuki is not, you're not getting anything lower offensively with Yadier Molina than you are with Kurt Suzuki. This article was absolute garbage in every sense of the term. First of all, the Nationals aren't going to get Yadier Molina. He's not going anywhere. And you wouldn't even play Yan Gomes. You're telling me that the Nationals would get Yadier Molina and share time with Yan Gomes? No chance. No chance at all. That is garbage. Yadier Molina is one of the best catchers of all time, and he's going to end his career a Cardinal playing every single game, and he's going to retire when he damn well pleases. Absolute garbage. That kind of irritated me. But on a lighter note, that's going to be our show. I will be back on Tuesday with a brand new episode. Enjoy your weekend, enjoy your families, and be sure to enjoy the rest of the holidays. You can find me on Instagram at EvanWardley23. You can play me in Tap Baseball if you're bored. The nickname is EvanWardley23. And I'd like to thank you for listening to the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I would like to ask you to please remember to subscribe to the show and write a nice review because it really helps us out. And also, if you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you all, and have a great weekend.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast. part of the Golden State Media Concepts podcast network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts podcast network. From movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.